Hello, lovely people. So we're on chapter 9 of Heindel's Rosicrucian Cosmo conception, Stragglers and Newcomers. In following through the preceding chapter, the evolution of life, consciousness and form, the triple phase of manifestation of the Virgin Spirit, which is the life that gathers the form about itself and gains consciousness thereby, we have spoken as though there were only one class, as though the Virgin Spirits, without exception, had made constant and uniform progress. This was done for the sake of simplicity, because stragglers there were, as there are in any great body or company. In school there are every year those who fail to reach the standard required for promotion into a higher grade. Similarly, in every period of evolution, there are those who fall behind, because they have not attained the standard necessary to pass onward to the next higher stage. Even so, early as the Saturn period, there were some who failed to improve sufficiently to take the next forward step. At that stage, the higher beings were working with the life, which was itself unconscious, but that unconsciousness did not prevent the retardation of some of the Virgin Spirits who were not so pliable, not so readily adaptable as others. In that one word, adaptability, we have the great secret of advancement or retardation. All progress depends upon whether an evolving being is flexible, adaptable and pliable, so as to be able to accommodate itself to new conditions, or whether it's crystallized, set and incapable of alteration. Adaptability is the quality which makes for progress, whether an entity is at a high or low stage of evolution. Lack of it is the cause of retardation of the spirit and retrogression of the form. This applies to the past, present and future, the division of the qualified and the unqualified, thus being made with the exact and impersonal justice of the law of consequence. There never was, or ever shall be, any arbitrary distinction between the sheep and the goats. The hardened, unresponsive condition of some of the Saturn beings prevented the awakening of the divine spirit within them. Therefore they remained simply mineral, all they had gained before the germinal dense body. Thus there were two classes, or kingdoms, in the Sun period: the stragglers of the Saturn period, who were still mineral, and the pioneers of the Saturn period, who were capable of receiving the germ of a vital body and becoming plant-like. In addition to these two kingdoms, there was also a third, a new life wave, which was just commencing its activity at the beginning of the Sun period. That is, the life wave which now ensouls our animals. The matter into which the new life wave entered, together with the stragglers of the Saturn period, composed the mineral kingdom of the Sun period. There was, however, a great difference in those two subdivisions of the second kingdom. It's possible for the stragglers to make a spurt and overtake the pioneers who are now our humanity, but impossible for the new life wave of the Sun period to do that. It will reach a stage corresponding to the human, but under very different conditions. The division of stragglers and pioneers took place in the 7th revolution of the Saturn period, when the divine spirit was awakened by the lords of the flame. Then it was found that some of the evolving entities were in such an unresponsive, hardened condition that it was impossible to arouse them. They therefore remained without the spark of spirit upon which their progress depended, and they were obliged to remain at the same level, being unable to follow the others in whom the spiritual spark was awakened. Truly, truly, all that we are or are not is the result of our own effort or our own inaction. These stragglers and the newly arrived life wave formed dark spots in the otherwise glowing gas sphere, which was the densest globe of the Sun period, and our present sunspots are an atavistic reminder of that condition. In the sixth revolution of the Sun period, the life spirit was awakened by the cherubim, and again it was found that some who had safely passed the critical point in the Saturn period had fallen behind in the Sun period, and were unfit to have the second aspect of the spirit vivified. Thus there were another class of stragglers who had lagged behind the crest wave of evolution. In the seventh revolution of the Sun period, the Lords of the Flame reappeared to awaken the divine spirit in those who had failed to qualify for it at the end of the Saturn period, but had attained to the point where they could receive the spiritual impulse in the Sun period. The Lords of the Flame also awakened the germ of divine spirit in as many of the new life wave entities as were ready, but here also there were stragglers. Thus, at the beginning of the Moon period, there were the following classes: the pioneers, who had successfully passed through the Saturn and the Sun periods. They had dense and vital bodies, divine and life spirit germinally active. The stragglers of the Sun period, who had dense and vital bodies and also divine spirit, all germinal. The stragglers of the Saturn period, who had been promoted in the seventh revolution of the Sun period. They had the germ of dense body and divine spirit. The pioneers of the new life wave, who had the same vehicles as the stragglers of the Saturn period, but belonged to a different scheme of evolution from ours. The stragglers of the new life wave, who had only the germ for the dense body, and finally the new life wave, which entered upon its evolution at the beginning of the Moon period and is the life that ensouls our plants of the present day. It's necessary to remember that nature hastens slowly. She makes no sudden changes in forms. To her, time is nothing. The attainment of perfection is everything. A mineral does not change to a plant at one bound, but by gradual, almost imperceptible degrees. A plant does not become an animal in a night. It requires millions of years to bring about the change. Thus, at all times there are all stages and gradations to be found in nature. The ladder of being stretches without break from protoplasm to God. Therefore, we have to deal not with the 6 different kingdoms corresponding to the above 6 classes, which entered the arena of evolution at the beginning of the Moon period, but with 3 kingdoms only: mineral, plant and animal. The lowest class in the Moon period composed the new life stream, which there commenced its evolution. It formed the hardest mineral part, yet it must be borne in mind that it was by no means as hard as the mineral of the present time, but only about as dense as our wood. This statement does not contradict former ones, which described the Moon as watery, nor does it conflict with diagram 8, showing the densest globe in the Moon period as located in the etheric region, which is etheric. As before stated, the fact that the path of evolution is spiral prevents any condition ever being duplicated. There are similarities, but never reproductions of identical conditions. It's not always possible to describe conditions in exact terms. The best available term is used to convey an idea of the conditions existing at the time under consideration. Class 5 in our list was nearly mineral, yet on account of having passed through and beyond the mineral condition during the Sun period, it had some plant characteristics. Class 4 was almost plant and did evolve to a plant before the close of the Moon period. It was, however, more nearly allied to the mineral kingdom than the next two classes which formed the higher kingdom. I guess that means than. We may therefore group classes 4 and 5 together as forming a sort of half-step, a mineral plant kingdom, which composed the surface of the ancient planet of the Moon period. It was something like our present peat, which is also a state between the mineral and plant. It was soggy and wet, consistent with the statement that the Moon period was watery. Thus the 4th, 5th and 6th classes composed the different gradations of the mineral kingdom in the Moon period, the highest being nearly plant, and the lowest the hardest mineral substance of that time. Classes 2 and 3 formed the plant kingdom, although they were both really more than plants, yet not quite animal. They grew in the mineral plant soil. They were stationary like plants, yet they could not have grown in a purely mineral soil as our plants do now. Good examples of what they were like may be found in our parasitic plants, which cannot grow in a purely mineral soil, but seek the food already specialised by the real plant or tree. Class 1 was composed of the pioneers of the life wave of virgin spirits. In the Moon period, they were going through a sort of animal-like existence, yet they were like the animals of our time only insofar as they had the same vehicles and were under the control of a group spirit, which included the whole human family. In appearance, they were very different from our present animals, as shown by the partial description given in the previous chapter. They didn't touch the surface of the planet, but floated suspended by umbilical-like cords. Instead of lungs, they had a gill-like apparatus through which they breathed the hot, steamy fire fog. These features of the Moon existence are still recapitulated by the embryo during the period of gestation. At certain stages of development it has the gills. The Moon beings at that time had also the horizontal spine of the animal. During the Moon period, several more divisions of classes occurred than in the preceding periods, because there were, of course, stragglers who failed to keep abreast of the crest wave of evolution. As a result, there were, at the beginning of the Earth period, 5 classes, some of them containing several divisions. These divisions occurred in the following times and for the following reasons. In the middle of the 5th revolution of the Moon period, when the seraphim bestowed the germ of human spirit upon the pioneers who had fitted themselves to pass on, some were found wanting when weighed in the balance and therefore unfit to receive the spiritual impulse which awakened the threefold spirit. In the 6th revolution of the Moon period, the cherubim reappeared and vivified the life spirit of those who had been left behind in the Sun period and had since reached the necessary stage of development, and also in those stragglers of the Sun period who had now evolved a vital body during their plant existence in the Moon period. Class 4 in the previous list had been going through a low stage of plant existence. Nevertheless, the majority of them had evolved the vital body sufficiently to allow of the awakening of the life spirit. Thus the 3 last named all possessed the same vehicles at the beginning of the Earth period, although only the last 2 named belong to our life wave and have a chance of even yet overtaking us if they pass the critical point which will come in the next revolution of the Earth period. Those who cannot pass that point will be held over until some future evolution reaches a stage where they can drop in and proceed with their development in the new period. They will be debarred from going forward with our humanity because it will be advanced so far beyond their status that it would prove a serious clog to our progress to drag them along. They will not be destroyed, but simply held in waiting for another period of evolution. Progression with our present wave of evolution is what is meant when salvation is spoken of in the Christian religion, and it's something to be earnestly sought for, though the eternal damnation of those who are not saved does not mean destruction, nor endless torture. It is nevertheless a very serious matter to be held in a state of inertia for inconceivable millions of years, before a new evolution shall have progressed to such a stage that those who fail here can have an opportunity to proceed. The spirit is not conscious of the lapse of time, but it's none the less a serious loss, and there must also be feeling of unhomelikeness when at last such spirits find themselves in a new evolution. So far as the present humanity is concerned, that possibility is so small as to be almost negligible. It's said, however, that of the total number of virgin spirits which started evolution in the Saturn period, only about 3/5 will pass that critical point in the next revolution and go on to the end. The greatest apprehension of occult scientists is materialism, which, if carried too far, not only prevents progress, but will destroy all the 7 vehicles of the Virgin Spirit, leaving it naked. Such a one will then have to commence at the very beginning of the new evolution. All the work it's done since the dawn of the Saturn period will have been utterly wasted. For this reason, the present period is to our humanity the most critical of all. Therefore, occult scientists speak of the 16 races, of which the Germano-Anglo-Saxon is one, as the 16 possibilities for destruction. May the reader safely pass them all, for their grip is worse than the retardation in the next revolution. Speaking generally, Class 5 in the foregoing list was given the germ of the Divine Spirit during the 7th revolution, when the Lords of Flame reappeared. Therefore, they were pioneers of their last life wave, entering evolution of the Moon period. They passed their mineral existence there. The stragglers of that life wave were thus left with only the germ of a dense body. In addition to the above, there was also a new life wave, our present mineral kingdom, entering upon its evolution at the beginning of the Earth period. At the end of the Moon period, these classes possessed the vehicles as they are classified in diagram 10 and started with them in the beginning of the Earth period. During the time which has elapsed since then, the human kingdom has been evolving the link of mind and has thereby attained full waking consciousness. I'm not sure I'd agree with that at this point. The animals have obtained a desire body, the plants a vital body, the stragglers of the life wave which entered evolution in the Moon period have escaped the hard and fast conditions of rock soils, while the life wave that entered evolution here in the Earth period forms the hard rocks and stones. Thus have the different classes obtained the vehicles ascribed to them in diagram 3, to which the reader is referred. Okay, so that concludes chapter 9 of the Rosicrucian Cosmo conception. I hope you enjoyed that, and I will see you at chapter 10.